Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Coastal Source 101. This is a webinar that we're going to be offering you today. It's a sort of an overview of our lighting, our cables, and some sales essentials that we're going to discuss throughout this. It's approximately a 1-hour presentation. First and foremost, I hope everybody is safe, and I think we're all trying to figure this thing out. This is webinar number 3 for today. For those of you, I know we had 1 or 2 guys that registered for all 3 today. They're all the same. This is lighting. Tomorrow we'll get into audio, but today is 3 sessions of lighting. So anyhow, again, thank you for jumping on. We hope this is a meaningful 1 hour of your time. We'll follow up with an email that will have a recorded version of this, as well as some other things that we refer to throughout the document that you'll have links to. And if you're not currently a Coastal dealer, there'll be a link to what's involved and the steps and all that good stuff. So again, look forward to that in your email. Most likely you'll get something tomorrow. So okay, just wanted to touch base on what we're going to cover today. Number 1 is going to be, an intro to Coastal Source, Franco D'Ascanio, the family history. It's unique, and it kind of explains what we do. So we'll show you a quick video on that. We'll talk about the Coastal differentiators, the cables and connections. Pete's going to help out with that. We'll get into some aspects of landscape lighting, talk about LEDs briefly, get into our Coastal Source design services, and then touch on some of the selling techniques and things that we kind of recommend and see successful dealers doing out in the field. Okay, so typically when we do our one-day trainings, there's 4 of us that do it, but we've narrowed this down to Pete and I. My background, I've been with Coastal for 7 or so years. I've got about 30 years in the landscape green side of the business. Was with my family's company for a while. Got into lighting early on, back in the halogen days. Learned a lot, and caught up with Coastal again about 7 years ago. Was very intrigued with what they were doing, the approach they were taking. The labor savings, the profitability. Back then, the line was nowhere near what it is today, but it was refreshing to see somebody doing something different. So, and we'll talk more about that as we go through today. Now I want to introduce Pete Sepsi. Pete, you want to jump on for a couple seconds?
Yeah, hey everybody. Again, Pete Sepsi here. Joined Coastal Source in 2018. Prior to that, I was actually an installing Coastal Source dealer. So a lot of experience out in the field, real world applications with our products. My background is an AV integrator, 20 years in that business, along with some work on the line voltage side. So, project manager, wire puller, system programmer, everything in between, we all do. Nowadays with Coastal, I help out with trainings as well as work on integration projects. Some in-house technical programs, and then also support our design services, which I know John's going to talk a little bit about today. John?
Okay, awesome, Pete. Thank you. This is a webinar, so you really can't, we don't have interaction, live conversation or anything like that. So a little bit different, but hopefully it's easy to adapt. And I'm sure many of you have been on a number of these things, and you know this in the back of your head, but there is a little icon down at the bottom of your screen. Says Q&A right down here, okay? And simply, if you click on that, up will pop this little box, and in that little box, you can type your question. We're going to try to monitor that throughout. If we can answer questions while we're going, we will. If not, we will answer them at the end. There'll be another session where we'll read all the questions and go through that. So please don't be bashful. Don't hesitate to ask questions. There's a lot that we're going to cover. Typically, our trainings are a minimum of 1 day. Sometimes they're a day and a half, 2 days. So we're trying to give you, bits and pieces to get you, enough to get refreshed with the product line, or if you're new to it, kind of an opener on what to expect. Okay, so like I mentioned, there's some unique and interesting backgrounds. The Descanio family, Franco in particular, one of three brothers who started Coastal Source. They have a really interesting story how they got started. They're masons, they're audio integrators, interior decorators, landscape contractors, irrigation, exotic palm growers. I mean, it's a very unique operation. And so we're going to play a little bit of the family history so you can see why, we do what we do.
Hello, this is Franco Descanio, president of Coastal Source. I would like to take a couple minutes to share our rich Coastal Source history with you. It all started back in 1959 when my parents, Reno and Margaret Descanio, immigrated from Italy directly to the Florida Keys. Not satisfied with the lack of opportunity working in northern factories, they started a successful cast stone business where they created custom designed and tooled outdoor architectural features and garden ornaments. My brothers Tony, Amadeo, and myself started working for the family business at a very early age and have not worked for anyone else ever since. Tony specialized in architecture and construction, Amadeo in interior design, materials, finishes, and fixtures. My specialty is in electronics, electrical, and outdoor living environments. In 1995, all our divisions came together to form Design Source, a one-of-a-kind turnkey company that specializes in ground-up architecture, construction, and maintenance of large estate properties and small tropical resorts. We're so fortunate that our third generation is now working in the company. Armed with decades of experience building award-winning estate properties, both of my sons, Franco Jr., a licensed architect and degreed engineer, along with Nicholas, a licensed landscape architect, and I started Coastal Source. Initially, the goal was to provide high-performance outdoor lighting and audio systems exclusively for our Design Source, Florida Keys, and Caribbean projects. These new systems, with an emphasis on defying the elements, became very popular with our clients that had homes all across the world. This presented an opportunity along with a challenge. How could we produce and distribute products from the tiny and isolated Florida Keys chain of islands? Enter our close friends and clients, the Zimmerman family. Their strong family business matches the Descanio's drive for innovation, quality, and business ethics. The Zimmermans, with their New Jersey facilities and know-how in manufacturing and sourcing, along with distribution systems, were the ideal partners for the Descanio family's 50 years of experience in coastal design, construction, and maintenance. Today, Coastal Source is known as a leading international company specializing in the highest performance outdoor lighting and audio systems with an emphasis on reliability and simplicity.
Okay, so a pretty cool story, kind of gives you, again, the background of why we certainly do things. Okay, so, with my experience, Pete's experience, the Descanios, and a number of other of our staff that have been in the field, we have seen what works and what doesn't work. From the beginning, when designing a product, we start from scratch. We don't just copy what others have done. We analyze what works best and we test it and we move forward. So we do see things from a different point of view because of our background, because of our experience. We really do try to come up with a very unique product the first time at it. And that's why sometimes, our products take a while to come to fruition because of the extensive testing. And we'll see more about that in some upcoming slides. Okay, so what sets Coastal Source apart from the others? Today we'll take a closer look at all sort of the differentiators, the cables, the materials, and the system approach. Our cables are the backbone of the lighting and audio systems. We don't like in-field failures, but we do love productivity. Our cables allow us for a very fast and reliable install, no matter who is putting the system together. Regarding the materials, we go into extreme measures of testing when it comes to determining the proper materials to build our products, such as brass, anodized extruded aluminum, or marine grade stainless steel. In our Florida Keys location, we test the materials in both our lab and real world environment. And we invite you, if you ever get down there, to come check it out. We're in Marathon, and it's pretty impressive to see sort of what we do to torture these materials. We utilize salt chambers, which we'll show you a video of in the next slide, We also test for UV degradation and extreme temperature testing. And then our system approach. Unlike many of our competitors, we design and manufacture just about every component of a lighting or audio system. If we can make it better, we will. From the transformer to the cable to the fixtures to the LED, we want to ensure everything works together seamlessly. And if there's ever an issue, there's one person to call. There's also one other differentiator, which we feel is pretty important these days with clients not necessarily wanting you inside their house, and that's our products 100% can be installed outside. You do not need to go into your client's house. Early on in the audio days, we started with an external system because of the demand, the high fidelity that we were able to create. A lot of our audio integrator partners were asking us for amplification and being able to have the source inside the house, and we delivered that with our great CRS rack amps. But now, times have changed a little bit, and right now especially, folks are not necessarily wanting you inside the house. So we have a complete lineup of amplifiers, streamers, everything, again, that can work seamlessly outside. They can still connect with the system inside, but they can be standalone, and you don't need to step foot inside the client's house, which, again, there's a lot of sensitivity right now, and we think that we can certainly help you guys out in that regards. Okay, as I mentioned, the cables are really the backbone of what we do and how we go about things. It's an important component, and Pete is going to take this next segment and kind of explain to you guys all about it. So, Pete?
Yes. So in regards to cables, we could really spend a whole day talking about cables. As John mentioned, it is the backbone of our system. We're going to take out just a couple minutes here to just touch on the difference. Now, again, cables represent the backbone, both lighting and audio. So what kind of sets our cables apart from the competitor is, a lot of materials and specifics. Before we even touch on that, as a group, I'm sure we all have been on the field at some point and can probably answer this question. What is the number one cause of failure? And that, of course, is the connection. Okay, so this shows a burned up neutral on the line voltage side, but I'm sure on the low voltage side, we've all had an RJ45 or a wire nut or a different type of splice that has failed, requiring us to get out to that job site. In fact, what's a very interesting quote here from Toro indicates that roughly 70% of all failures in the field have to do with wire connections. So this is a big standout component for me. That's 7 out of 10 jobs, number one. And number two, think about that. You've got to roll a truck for that. That's not something that you can solve with a firmware upgrade or software reboot or, again, a hardware restart. This is you're rolling a truck, you're spending labor. So we as a company said, we can build the best outdoor landscape fixture, best outdoor speaker, but at the end of the day, if the reliability, profitability, success of the job is measured on the cabling or the connections, and 7 out of 10 jobs we have to go back on, it's not really a great way to go about it. So again, like John said, we kind of go about things at a different approach. So we came out with our CC cable. Here is a quick video of what it looks like to put our cable together. Again, very different than what's out there on the market now that you'll see from the big box stores, from your supply house. So it is a pre-terminated cable with a male and female connection on it. And the best part about it for me is this system goes together without any tools. Again, being someone from the field, we all know the time that it takes to strip back those wires and make a good quality connection. So a couple other properties I want to touch on this in relation to, let's compare it to your typical, 12 gauge or 14 gauge zip cord that you get again at the supply house. So the big takeaway here is multiple layers of protection. So getting back to that zip cord, we know we've got one insulator on each of the conductors. We're here with our cable. If you can see, we've got actually an outer jacket, an inner jacket, and then an individual insulator on each of the conductors. So 3 levels right there of protection. I'll also mention that those conductors are twisted. So it is a twisted pair to reject interference. We are using this, again, for not just lighting, but for audio. So that's important. All the copper that we use is all oxygen-free, high strand count copper. And we also tin plate the copper completely through the cable. So not just at the gold-plated tip ends. So that's really important, and it really speaks to kind of the belts and suspenders approach that we take to our systems. So the cable offers a sealed system, and what I mean by sealed is from the transformer to the light fixture, you have a series of IP68 rated connections, so it is sealed. But if that cable were to become compromised in the field by a piece of machinery going through the cable, without it, if it were not tinned, corrosion would start to work its way through the wire. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen that if you've pre-wired a project and you go back a few months later, strip back the insulation, and what you find, the copper doesn't look nice and shiny like it did the day you installed it. It's got that green, it may start to turn black and so on. That corrosion is working its way down the wire. So again, tin plated rejects that, so it doesn't allow it to happen. So getting into some more detail, again, I mentioned a male and female connector. This is a closer look at it. And it's also a keyed connector. And what I mean by that is that connector can only go in one way, as you can see the flat side. The reason why we do that is to maintain polarity. Now, while that's not critical on the lighting side, because we're typically dealing with AC transformers, on the audio side, we do want to maintain polarity for the speaker systems. It is direct burial and is a 12 gauge. And again, it comes in a variety of different lengths, which I'll jump into in just a moment. Here's really a visual of what it looks like on a typical lighting installation. This is a single MR16 flex fixture, which John will touch on in a bit. If you notice, that fixture has an in and out on it. So what I'm looking at is here, I'm running from my transformer, essentially a trunk line cable of this CC cable, and going in and out of each fixture, a daisy chain type approach. So I'm jumping from fixture to fixture. Again, this is the 12 gauge CC cable, again, acting as a trunk line. Now, in some applications, I may want to create a branch circuit. And what I mean by that is, let's say in this photograph here, I want to put a fixture up into that tree. I want to create some light for the canopy, or I want to do a downlight application. Well, now I've got a branch circuit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a cable up to that fixture in the tree. But our 12 gauge CC cable is a pretty large cable. So in those applications where we want to run in smaller spaces or tighter spots, we've got a smaller version called CMC, Coastal Mini Connector, and it shares all the same properties of its big brother, the CC cable. The difference is it's a smaller gauge. So this is a 16 gauge compared to the 12 gauge of the CC. Again, it's still twisted, it's still tin plated, IP68, no tools, all of those great properties, just in a smaller form factor. So as you can see, this kind of gives us the ability to put it into tighter spaces. So again, this is when we talk about a trunk and branch scenario, this is what we're looking at here. So getting into cable lengths, I want to start in the middle first here with our 2 and 4 conductor CC cable. So you can see here the different lengths that it comes in, from 5 to 100 foot lengths. Now the 4 conductor version is probably a little bit more popular on the audio side, because you can do both left and right channel with a single cable, but it absolutely has a home for lighting as well, as you can have one cable and achieve 2 separate lighting circuits. On the left of the screen, this is our smaller 16 gauge CMC that I touched on, and you can see it comes in much smaller lengths because it's intended to be in tighter spaces up inside the tree canopy, inside a pergola is another great example, in a soffit and so on. So those come as small as a 7.5 inch piece. Same idea as if you're working, let's say, inside a set of steps and you need to wire some of our niche lights, which John will talk about. Great application. Lastly, on the right, this is our new 8 conductor, what we call Uniconnect cable. This cable was designed in conjunction with our new 12.0 line source speaker and 18.0 bollard sub. So this cable was designed to easily, quickly connect very large scale audio systems. But again, going back to lighting, it absolutely has a home in lighting where I can run one trunk line out and have multiple lighting circuits. I will also touch on the 4 conductor and 8 conductor. You can use those for both lighting and audio. I did mention that the pairs, the cable pairs, are twisted. So for example, on a 4 conductor cable, you could use 2 of the conductors for lighting and the other 2 conductors for an audio circuit. Moving on, to more cable properties here. Sorry, my screen was just locked up for a moment. There we go. Okay, great. Sorry for the delay, guys. So we do have some cable rules we want to follow. Cable rules relate to how far can I run, how many fixtures do I have from my transformer, and so on. So I want to touch on our 12 gauge CC cable to start, since that's the primary cable of our system. That is our trunk line. So a very simple rule we have, and these rules again apply to our cable using our lamps. The rule is you can do 150 watts up to 150 feet. Here's what I mean by that. Sorry, for some reason I'm losing control. Here we go. Okay. Sorry for the delay again. So our max load of our systems will always be 150 watts. Now we have 150 watt transformers with single outputs. We have 300 watt transformers. They're going to have 250 watt outputs. 600 watt transformer from us will have 450 watt outputs. So all I need to do is I need to take that 150 and divide it by what my actual load is. My actual load is determined by the wattage of my lamps and how many lamps I have. So you see in the bottom example, I take 150, divide it by my actual load, which in this case is 75, and I can double my distance to 300 feet. Here's a good visual representation. On the left, I've got a 150 watt transformer, and as you can see, I've got 53 watt fixtures in the top example, so I'm maxed out at 150 watts. So remember, 150 watts equals 150 feet. The bottom example, I've cut my load in half. So now I've only got 75 watts. Because I've cut my load in half, I can now double my distance to 300 feet. A quick final example is this is a 300 watt transformer in the center of the screen. So it's got two independent 150 watt outputs. Each leg of this transformer has only 75 watts or 50% of max load. So I can go 300 feet in each direction. Moving to the smaller CMC cable, the 16 gauge. Again, this is what you're going to use in and around pergolas and tree canopy and so on. Again, because it shares all the properties of the CC cable, the formula is the same, but since it's a smaller gauge cable, our max load instead of 150 is just 75. So again, the formula is the same, we just start out with a smaller max load. Of course, since we've got both 12 and 16 gauge cables, we need adapters to transition to and from each. In that early example where I showed the trunk and branch circuit, there we were transitioning from a 12 gauge to a 16 gauge. We also have plenty of splitters, two-way, three-way splitters, and so on. All of those are available. We don't have the time to go into a ton of those today, but I do want to touch on two examples here. And these are pigtail examples. I like to bring these up because I mentioned that our system is a sealed system. Remember, a series of IP68 connections from transformer to light fixture. Well, if there's an installation where an existing transformer is going to integrate, or the client has an existing, let's say, path light that they'd like to use in the system, you'll need a means to essentially exit the sealed coastal system and make a conventional wiring splice or connection. That's where these pigtails come in handy. Also, if you're going to make a conventional connection, an infield splice is a great way to do it. Here's an exploded view of what that infield splice looks like. You would also use this in an application where you had a finished project, and again, some machinery came on the project and maybe unfortunately damaged one of the cables. Option A is to replace the 5 or 10 foot section that's damaged, or you can use this infield splice to splice the cable and maintain an IP68 connection. Another thing I like to use out in the field is slap wraps. So these are very convenient when you pre-wire a project to mark the cables. The thing that I really like about these pre-printed labels is they hold up very well over time, underground, out in the elements. Okay, so if you pre-wire a job and you come back weeks later, months later to install the speakers, install the lights, you're going to have a clear identification of what wire is what. So again, this is extra important on projects where, let's say a backyard, for example, where you might have both lighting and audio. You wouldn't want to accidentally connect an AC transformer to a speaker, okay? That's definitely not something you want to do. So in this case, we'll have our wires clearly marked. So I highly recommend these. Again, going back, it is that keyed male and female relationship on both the CC and the CMC cable. The last thing I want to touch on, in our traveling one-day training sessions, we do a great exercise where we take a look at wiring the conventional way versus wiring the coastal way. So really what we do is we create a timed exercise between two different teams, and we compare kind of the way that we've always done it, or what we call now the old way, versus the coastal way. Okay, again, it's a great exercise to kind of show just how much time goes into making these traditional connections. And here's a quick example of what the traditional team is working with: transformer, 3 bullet lights, and a couple of 10-foot wire leads. On the coastal side, it's very similar. We've got our transformer, 3 of our flex bullet lights, and a couple of our 10-foot CC cables. Again, it's a little bit more impactful when we get to do it in person, but since we're here on this webinar, I did want to share a quick video of what it looks like at one of our trainings.
Cables and connectors are a big divergence from the norm in the landscape world. We believe strongly in their speed and reliability, so at all of our live training events, we conduct a hands-on wiring exercise. This exercise pits 2 experts in traditional wiring against a single novice, armed with a coastal connector cabling system. The results are telling, as the traditional wiring always takes several times longer while yielding much less reliable connections. Note that while the traditional wiring takes 10 minutes, there are 2 installers, meaning 20 minutes of labor versus the 2 minutes taken to complete the Coastal Source system.
So the other component of doing this exercise, to me, is showing that here on the traditional side, okay, where we've got, gel-filled wire nuts and junction boxes and so on, obviously we know that takes a lot of time, it's more labor, but from connection to connection, you're going to have varying levels of reliability, right? So maybe it's your best installer doing it, maybe it's someone who's a little bit more green, maybe it's not great weather outside, maybe it's end of the day on Friday. Okay, so all of those factors are going to impact the reliability of those traditional wiring connections. On the coastal side, as you see, we daisy chain from fixture to fixture without using any hand tools. Every time when I'm pushing together that CC cable and turning that nut, I'm guaranteed an IP68 connection. Again, every single time, taking weather out of it, taking the skill set of the installer, and so on. So that's something that really we try to drive that message home. And again, at the end of the day, the labor savings is very, very impressive. So again, we could talk about cables and reliability all day, but I do want to pass it on to John, who's going to get into some of the lighting components, and I'll be here answering some questions. I see some popping up on the Q&A.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you, Pete. Good stuff there regarding the cables, and as he mentioned, it truly is a labor savings. I think if you're unfamiliar with the system, you can talk to a number of our dealers, but typically we're seeing between 40 and 50% reduction in labor. Yes, the cables are more expensive than traditional 12 2-gauge cable, but at the end of the day, it's pretty much a wash, if not even more in your favor with the coastal cable because of the reliability. Okay, so now let's dive into the lighting review portion of the webinar. And before we do that, I just want to do a quick video here of one of our dealers who actually, Chris Smith might be on this call. Did this after his first install. He utilized Coastal Source Design Services to help him. It was actually a really nice project, lighting project. And so let's hear what Chris has to say, how he documented this and uses this for his clients to to engage with them.
Think about how much effort people put towards the actual landscape design, and then think about how much effort they put forth into maintaining the landscaping around their property. It's an opportunity to create an impact. Why would that end just because the sun's starting to set? Planning ahead for that effect and that aesthetic is really important, and it should be automatic. It's nothing that you need to think about. It should happen as the sun starts to set during different times of the year. and it should end at the time when you know people are going to bed. The great part about the Coastal Source products is having a solid brass fixture that's highly reliable and durable. These were created down in Florida where Saltair eats products alive. Install it once and know that it'll be there forever. And Coastal Source's modularity allows you to install the infrastructure once, but make the small modifications you need to really tune the effect you're looking for. You might add elements, take elements away, shift them around in position. That flexibility is one of the primary reasons why people love the Coastal Source product mix.
Okay, pretty cool video that Chris created and utilizes it again for his clients, talking about the Coastal Source, the sort of the system approach. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Leonardo da Vinci said, simplification is the ultimate sophistication. And whenever we get into the design side of things, we want to make sure that number one, it's reliable, but number two, that it's simple to operate. And so early on, we decided that, we didn't want to just create a fixture that, looked great, was extremely durable, had great lumen output, blah, 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 only to have it fail because of a bad connection or a faulty transformer or an LED that was insufficient. So we took it upon ourselves to look at what we had learned and really try to create an entire system from transformer to cable to LED to the fixture. Okay, so now let's look into the design, the build of what we do, of our landscape lighting fixtures. And this holds true not just for, this is an MR16 bullet, but all of our fixtures. We're very design oriented. We want to make sure that not only does it look good, but it's really got to last. So this is 100% brass. And what do I mean by that? Our fixtures are, made with brass that machines well, so we can get some really nice seams that you don't see, to remove the shroud or what have you. Typically in the presentation when we're live, we're handing around the fixture or two so that you can really feel the heft of the product. It's 100% brass also in that it's from the shroud all the way down to the stake. Many of our competitors out there, when it comes to the ground and below, meaning the stake, it's a plastic product. And we just, over the years of my experience and Franco's and many others that work with the company, we've seen those things fail. UV degradation comes into play and they're brittle and ultimately they crack and break. So we've chosen to do brass throughout the entire fixture. You'll also notice there's a number of O-rings and gaskets all throughout, and that's intended to prevent any water infiltration into that fixture. We use marine grade stainless steel in the socket where the LED meets with the socket to hold it in nice and tight and to make sure that we have great conductivity throughout that experience. And it's just indestructible type of product. Again, this is third generation that we've created with this particular bullet light. And every time we go back to the factory and we manufacture, we're looking, how can we tweak it? How can we make it better? What are some of the things that the dealers have told us in the field that we can improve upon? And we don't only do that for the MR16, we do it for all of our products. So we engineer these products for life. Okay, what I want to show you next is some sort of background of our testing chambers down in the Florida Keys. We look at the salinity, we torture them from temperature, we torture them from UV, from hot, cold, all of that stuff. So quick little video that will show you how we do it.
At CoSource, we've been extreme testing both in real-world and controlled lab conditions. Unlike the relatively mild ASTM fog chambers that use watered-down saline solutions, our custom design and built salt test chambers are brutal on everything we test. Rather than a light fog, our salt test chambers use full salinity ocean water in a complete coverage immersion pattern. The difference between the two standards is very significant. In addition, we are fortunate to have our research and development labs located right here in the fabulous Florida Keys, where we conduct our real-world outdoor tests right on the oceanfront. Carefully comparing and contrasting lab and real-world testing gives us the ability to conduct detailed studies of materials, finishes, and manufacturing techniques. These tests, along with many others such as UV and temperature extremes, are another reason that our products defy the elements.
Okay, pretty awesome. And again, if you get down to the Keys, definitely look us up. It's something that you definitely would enjoy seeing for sure. Okay, now let's get into our product a little bit further. You may have heard the term Flex and Direct Connect. Let's kind of differentiate what the two are. On the left-hand side, you'll see what we call our Flex fixtures. These are really the go-to fixtures in the landscape. In this particular case, this is an MR16 bullet light. We do Flex in the MR16, MR11, our path lights, and our niche bullet light. What Flex means is it comes in a box and it's pretty much ready to go. You just need to lamp it. We have a variety of different lamp options that we'll get into, from color temperature to wattage. So we give you that opportunity to choose what's right for that project. So essentially, again, most jobs are going to have some of these fixtures, the Flex fixtures on them, and it's just for you to be more, to have it ready to go out on the job very, very quickly. Direct Connect, on the other hand, these are all components, all the parts and pieces that you can create your own fixture. Think about it. It's kind of cool when you get into more advanced lighting and you have some problems and you need to solve those problems. You can build your own fixture. So for instance, this bullet light, which you see right here, it has four major components. It has the stake, a brass stake. It has the lamp or bulb housing here. It has a riser, and it has our cable. For instance, maybe you're using a larger path light or a tiki torch, in which case an 8-inch stake isn't going to be suitable enough. You need a 12-inch stake. Maybe you need a stabilizer. Maybe you want to have a riser that grows with the landscape, so a telescoping riser. So again, you can essentially build all different fixtures. These are all in-stock products, but you can tell your client, I'm creating a fixture for this specific job, which is kind of cool. Okay, so let's get into some of the go-to fixtures. In this case right here on the left-hand side, this is an MR11, MR16 bullet light. We use this on pretty much every single job. Love the MR11 because the lamp itself is very powerful. We can do either a 2-watt or a 4-watt. And with this fixture, it's about half the footprint of the MR16. I can light ornamental trees and architecture up to about 20, 25 feet tall, which is pretty significant. Once I get beyond that, I'm going to want to use my MR16, which I can throw further into larger trees, taller buildings, have a wider beam angle so I can get the understory, the canopy of the tree, and so forth. So we have two great options there. In the middle is our Flex niche bullet light, which is about half the size of the MR11. So tiny little guy, which is great for smaller applications, maybe rooftop gardens, tiny backyards, containers, areas where we don't want to see the fixture, but we want to be able to create or light something. Don't be misled by this fixture because of its size. It's a 3-watt integrated lamp that really can put out some significant output. More on that fixture in a couple minutes. And then on the right, we have our path lights. Those are also available in the Flex series. We have about 6 different options. We try to minimize that. Some of our other competitors out there will have pages and pages of different options. We like to make the selection for your client pretty straightforward. So we've chosen what we think are the best options available. Okay. Some other fixtures, and I don't go into all of them. We save that for our one-day trainings, but I've highlighted a couple here. And some of these are more advanced type of applications. The first fixture on the left is our nose light. It's a really well-designed, nice shape. It has a really nice throw of light. used for posts, used for railings. I like it in masonry column applications. It actually does come with a plate for a back box mounting, standard 4-inch back box. So it has a lot of great applications. And like I said, it does throw light fairly far out into the hardscape if need be. The next one is our Tiki Torch. Super fun fixture to utilize around a pool or a patio. It does have a nice 8-hour fuel reservoir on top of it with wick. And then on the underside is like it's a path light. It shines light down below the understory plantings, about 12 to 15 feet in diameter around that Tiki Torch. So if downlighting from a tree isn't an option, this is a great way to accomplish that and again, light the understory plants. Next is a hanging light. We utilize this in areas where we can't get a downlight like our Uniball. This one in particular is an MR16. We have an even smaller one that we can hang in a pergola, in a tree. Just a great way to downlight with a very small little footprint. And then the fixture on the right is a watch light, but it's on a riser, and we're utilizing it in this application as a path light. Typically, path lights, have a hat and it reflects 360 degrees. That's fine for a lot of pathways, but there are some applications where there might be shrubbery that's right up against that pathway. And by using a standard path hat, we're going to create a hot spot on that shrub behind us. Utilizing the wash light on a riser, we can illuminate 180 degrees in front, so we're not creating that hot spot behind us. It also gives a little bit of a contemporary look to the fixture. Okay, now let's get back to the niche light, which we launched about 2 years ago. Really popular fixture. You can see the size of it. It's about half the size of my thumb. It's threaded 1/2 inch. It fits in a standard 1-inch conduit. It's just really, really versatile. A lot of our dealers love this fixture. There's multiple applications for this thing, but this is the actual 3-watt module right here. And simply what we do is we just have a bunch of different accessories and shrouds in allowing us to throw the light in different ways and secure it in different ways between a bullet light, a square shroud, a escutcheon or an uplight, and then we have these for hardscapes and steps, throwing light in 180 to 90 degree angles. So horizontally across the surface. Really, really neat effect. These are some images. Sometimes the client doesn't want a path light. They would rather not see a fixture. So that's where this niche 90 degree comes in handy, throwing light across the step. And we can stagger them on the steps and get really kind of clever with the design. We also have a armature that we can throw light and angle light up at a structure or down, onto a patio or what have you. And then the image on the right is an in-grade light for lighting a tree within a turfed area. More applications, whether it's in an outdoor shower or steps or a dock, hanging from small trees where we can't get a larger MR16 or an MR11. It just has a ton of applications. And like Pete mentioned earlier, it's the cable that we utilize for this. This is built to be used indoors as well. It has a CL2 cable, which is by code allowable for interior walls. So a lot of our dealers are utilizing them in sophisticated pool houses, cabanas. Some of our integrators are actually putting them into indoor theaters, home theaters, because they're just so versatile, and by code, you can. Okay, now let's look at another fixture that we're launching. We should have this available sometime towards the end of May. This fixture is in response to a number of our dealers wanting a very contemporary type fixture. It's made of 100% extruded aluminum, and it's anodized, unlike cast aluminum that will rust in a matter of time. We have a bollard, which is on here on the left. We have an L-shaped path light, and then an uplight here. It's going to come in a couple different finishes, like a brushed aluminum, a black, and a white, and then we'll also do custom colors. This is the lamp module right here. This is actually a new niche light. I believe it's about 3/4 of an inch, a little bit bigger than what we have right now, but it's in a gimbal, so it'll articulate 25 degrees in all directions. So it'll be great to aim that light exactly where we need it in any one of these fixtures, But we'll also sell this separately so that you can use it as an uplight or a downlight. It'll have in the near future some other accessories to complement it. So really excited about this new version of path lights and niche lights. Okay, just to quickly go into some of the accessories as I play this video. There's a number of them on the website. I'm not going to get into all of them, but for instance, here this is our removable tip from the brass stake that we can use a theft guard on. We can add stabilizers. We can use a variety of different risers. Again, think direct connect. The stake on the right here, the aluminum stake, this is brand new. Tri-stabilizer. We have flush mounts, surface mounts. This is a security tri-mount, which eliminates the lights up in the soffit with large, 200-watt floodlights. You can now utilize MR16s, MR11s, and really direct that light. So pretty excited about that fixture. A lot of folks that are in security love that fixture. Okay, then we have a number of transformers depending on the application. The one on the far left, standard anodized aluminum, great transformer. It's a go-to transformer. My favorite is the direct burial. And yes, it can be directly buried in the ground, an irrigation valve box. It is a dumb transformer, so that it just kind of goes on and goes off, but it's super reliable. It can be controlled either by a controlled outlet, or we do have some third-party timers and such that photocells that can control it as well. The one in the middle is the composite for sort of medium-sized projects. You don't want to overload this thing, but for smaller 15 fixture jobs or what have you, it's got a built-in countdown timer. It's nice for a budget-conscious type project. The Hatch transformer works into our security mount and converts line voltage to low voltage. And then finally, our CL2 power supply. This is what we want to use for our niche light interior applications, because by code, this is an approved interior power supply that we can use in walls and ceilings and things like that. So that's a quick overview of some of the fixtures and some of the accessories and transformers. Now let's get into our LEDs, and we've alluded to these throughout. We all of our lighting systems, here are since day one have been LEDs. We never were into halogens. But the LEDs we started off with, number one, we did not make. We bought third-party ones, and it was LEDs were in their infancy. Currently, we are manufacturing our third generation of LEDs. We've learned a lot. We've been manufacturing our LEDs for about 5 or 6 years now. And we're very proud of their performance. The technology has increased significantly over time as we've been developing them. The biggest concern in design with the LEDs is the thermal management of them. Older LEDs died in the fixture. It was basically like an oven, a brass oven, and they would kill themselves because of the excessive heat, believe it or not. We work with Cree, which is a U.S. manufacturer, and we utilize their LED dye, and really, Cree is the best at what they do in the world, and we utilize a chip-on-board technology, which is highly efficient, and we which creates an even light output and color uniformity with that chip-on-board Cree LED. They are dimmable, our MR16s and MR11s, and a number of our other fixtures are integrated lamps. That we've custom designed the module, but they are replaceable. So if need be, they can come out, and we have them in different color temperatures as well. Okay, this is a look at the thermal management that we went through. On the left-hand side is how it used to be a typical design. It might be a plastic housing here with some fins, and actually the heat would slowly dissipate out the sides of the fixture. On the right-hand side is every component of the LED has a purpose. It's built for thermal management. We use the housing is a cold forged aluminum. That's this piece right in here. Thermal epoxy is this white area that helps pull the heat away from the chip right here, and it brings the heat through the stainless steel harpoon clamps here. And out into the fixture. So we actually use the fixture as a heat sink. allowing the LED to reach its full potential. Okay, when designing, we want best in class and efficiency. That's really important to us. In lighting, the efficiency takes the form of lumens per watt. Here is our MR11 and MR16 in full lumens. The MR11s are here in the blue, and the MR16s, there's 4 different ones starting at 1.5 up to 9 watts. You can see there's like a continuous curve giving you a lot of different options from a light output standpoint. The MR11 is smaller in footprint, but still is really, really an efficient and incredibly useful tool. I love that fixture, again, for structures and trees that are 30 foot or less. Okay, how our LED stacks up in the market. This is showing you lumens per watt. This is the efficiency number. Ours are at the top in the blue, from 80 to 107. We also have looked at other competitors here. Sura, which is a great LED. They manufacture mostly for the interior market. But problem we saw with that lamp, and that was one of the ones we used early on, was that it heats up really, really quickly in a concealed brass fixture. Unique and Brilliance are other 2 very popular landscape lights that are good out there, but you can see the efficiency is not nearly as good as what we've created. We're very proud of the efficiency, but every year they seem to be an improvement, and we expect these numbers to increase over time. We're very pleased with our LEDs from a reliability standpoint as well as performance. Okay, lastly, we wanted to mention color temperature. It's incredibly important everywhere, indoors and outdoors. 2700 to 3000 Kelvin are really the workhorses for the landscape. But we also suggest mixing colors. I'm a big fan of that, of layering light. It just adds more of a 3-dimensional look to that landscape. Cool temperatures can serve as a good purpose of an accent. Those cool blue-gray plants, blue Colorado spruce of Bismarckia, blue hosta, in even modern architecture, we want a cooler color temperature. But at the same time, you want to use it sparingly. You want to make a statement with a specimen plan or architecture or what have you. So just know that you have a variety of different color temperatures in your toolbox with Coastal Source. Okay, so now let's get into what we call CSDS, or our design support. We started this service, probably 6 years ago, to take the frustration away from dealers who potentially did not know the product or were unfamiliar with our system approach. We want you to be successful. So let's spend a little time going into how this all works. Essentially, as a dealer, you get to log into the portal, and you, up at the top, there's a drop-down menu, and you click on Design Services, and this is what you get. You get 4 options: Quick Estimate, Fixture Placement, Proposal, and Enhanced Proposal. Number 1 is the quick estimate. That's essentially, you send us a couple pictures, maybe you do a online quote, it could be a plan that you send us. You say, how would I like this tree? Or take a look at my quote, what am I missing? It's really a very quick conversation. It's a phone call, it's an email. A lot of times it can be text as well. There's no charge for that. We do that all the time with dealers. Number 2, and probably our most popular, is what we call the fixture placement. It's a pretty quick turnaround. We get you a budget number. It's a visual. It really helps you understand, or helps the client understand, what it is you're proposing. So if you submit us a plan, or maybe it's just an address and we can look up an image on satellite. Some of our dealers will also send us a drone image. We can then, we have 2 landscape architects on staff, audio engineer. We got some really talented people that can look at this and say, oh, that's a Japanese maple. This is what I need to use fixture-wise, is the color temperature. And we'll just place dots where we think these fixtures should go based on the information you've given us. From that, we can create a fixture count, which then we can create a preliminary budget for you. This job will be between $14,500 and $17,000. So it's a visual, it's a budget, it's something to throw out there to the client to get them to understand where this is going to cost, what it's going to look like. And hopefully you can then, by that time, speak with them, get an approval, maybe make some changes, get that deposit if you already haven't done so, and then we can do what's called a proposal. And this is a full presentation with a circuit plan, bill of materials, fixture ID. This will cost you, but it's minimal, and we'll get into that in the next slide or two. But it really does help sell the deal and give the client a visual, pretty important package of what we can do. This typically takes 7 to 10 days for that. This is an example of what it looks like. You get a cover page. This is a fixture ID. We get down to the specifics of beam angle and color temperature, as well as a circuit plan, which I should have. Here's a blow up of what it would look like, you know, the different zones, how we will cable it. So it's a pretty informative document, whether it's for a presentation or it's for your guys in the field or maybe even a subcontractor. This is an audio one where we have multiple zones, and then we do a circuit plan showing the amplification outside, and then the different zones and subline and sat left, sat right, etc. Then we can take that basic proposal to the next level and do an enhanced proposal, and there's no additional charge for this. But that's when, again, you want to impress your client, or maybe you're working with a subcontractor and he needs to understand how it's being installed. That's where we would show the details, the cross sections, the specifications of the product, and so forth. Okay, so how does it all work? When you become a new dealer, maybe you're already a dealer, you get $1,000 credit. Some of you have not used that, and it's still there. It's based on the number of fixtures or the number of zones if it's audio. So for instance, if it's 25 fixtures, it would be $250 to do that basic proposal, okay? Which takes 7 to 10 days, but that's a nice package. And if that job gets bigger, you can see what the costs will be. It's very simple with audio. It's $250 per zone. The cool thing is, when you sell that job, you get credited back the design fee. Okay, so in this case, the $250. Do you still charge your client for the design fee? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Another tool that we have that's really helpful, this is something we launched about, I think it was about 8 months ago. It's a lighting estimator tool, and this is based on the 8 years of history that we have from our design services and the projects we've done. We've been able to build a very accurate estimating tool. It's going to give you a range of what we think this project will cost. And this is something that can be used by you in the field, whether it's on your mobile device or on your desktop at home, however you like to do it, and walk the job and come up very quickly with a lighting proposal. So let's take a deeper dive in how that works. Okay, so on your homepage of the dealer website, you're going to scroll about halfway down, and you'll see the lighting estimator tool button on the right-hand side. So you click that, and it basically walks you through different fixtures. I think it asks you about 6 different fixtures. We're not going to go through all of them, but how many uplights do you have on the job? How many path lights? What about specialty fixtures? If you don't know what a specialty fixture is, you click on the little icon and it tells you what falls into that category, and so forth. And then it gives you a value at the end of the day of that total project. Okay, it adds them all up. And again, this is based on history that we've done. So it's going to give you 3 different numbers: value, typical, and custom. And basically what that refers to is the type of fixture, the type of transfer, the type of finish. Value obviously is the basics, okay? No bells and whistles. And as we go to the right, typical and custom, we get into bigger and better transformers, different finishes, different unique fixtures, and so forth. And that's where that range comes in. But it's a very efficient tool. I like this. I've done it the old way, old school, for many, many years. I've compared my notes. I've done jobs both that way and this way, and it really is pretty darn accurate. If I'm doing a large job, I'm going to segment that job into different zones. Driveway left, driveway right, rear patio, rear pool, And that's just going to get me even more accurate. Because if I have a project that I got to run 150 feet out to the first fixture, this calculator is not going to take that into account. So we have to keep that in mind. But all in all, it's a very useful tool to give you a quick number. Okay, there's another tool in the knowledge bank that I want to point out. It's called the Lighting Labor Estimator. And this takes into consideration three things. It takes into consideration the installer's skill level. It takes into consideration the soil type, if it's rocky or sandy, and it takes into consideration the application. Is it all ground fixtures, path lights and up lights, or are we, advanced, going up in the trees, soffits, pergolas, and things like that? Then it gives us a multiplier. We plug in our labor rate, and there we go. Pretty impressive number of fixtures. It gives us that labor number for that particular job. That can, again, be downloaded on site. So working with our lighting estimator, which is going to give us a material cost, we add our labor, and that's where we're going to come up with our per fixture cost. In this case, $395 per fixture. So what does that mean? Let's look at this. We've kind of broken it down into three different categories. Value, we talked about. These are the different fixtures and transformers. These are installed prices for these particular products. So for instance, if we're in this range, we're about $350 per fixture installed. That's working on a 40-point margin. So look at your profitability per fixture, $140 to $175 per fixture. Okay, again, working on a 40-point margin. Obviously, these numbers are going to change based on your labor in your different markets, so that will tweak things higher or lower, but it's just to give you an idea. As we move forward to the right, as we get into different fixtures, different finishes, more unique fixtures, that number per fixture installed is going to increase up to 600 plus. Okay, so as we get more advanced and such, that per fixture price installed will rise, and so will our profitability per fixture. So something to think about as you get into bigger projects. Lighting projects can be very, very profitable. Okay, and as we talk about profitability and selling, let's a great segue into the next segment. I get the question a lot. Where do I start if I'm new to lighting? And I always like to start with my existing clients. Yes, I know many of us work on some fairly large projects, multi-year projects, number of disciplines on there, number of designers, and that's great. But a lot of times it's difficult to get into, the lighting or the audio. So I like to focus with the existing client base you've worked for many years. They have the confidence in you. Start to pitch it to them. Let them know that you're in the business and that you want a shot. You want to try to help them light their backyard from an ornamental standpoint. Maybe it's security. Make some suggestions. But number one, you got to let them know that you're in business, because most times what that client's going to do is go to your website and say, "Hey, let's see what they've done." Well, unfortunately, many times a lot of you don't have a gallery or even talk about the lighting. So it's something that you really need to focus on. We have thousands of pictures in our inventory that we have the ability to share with you as one of our dealers, so that you can, in the beginning, utilize those pictures to build your portfolio, to build your gallery, with the intent that you soon will be using your own. So a lot of our more successful dealers, like Greg here from the Luxury Illuminations, has done that. Here are some galleries from Reynolds and Captive and Hampton Lighting that have done really nice jobs of projects they've done, or some of them may even be projects they utilized from us early on. But this is what clients are looking for. You need to really be able to show them what you have done and how you've done it. Okay, networking, talking with other professionals out there. Some of them are very obvious, the landscape architects, the architects and builders. The one I really like are the realtors, because realtors are in the business to sell property. They're in the business to They want curb appeal. That's what's going to sell that home. And by offering the ability to light that home when it gets dark, allows them to essentially have that house on the market 24/7. So work with a realtor. Let's let them, introduce you to a client. And a lot of times they're not big jobs. It's going to be 15, 20 fixtures or so to light the front of this house. But the intent is you're going to make them client happy. You're going to make the realtor happy. Hopefully you sell that house sooner. That client's ultimately going to move to another home, and that's another viable lead for you, and hopefully more leads to come from that realtor. So definitely talk to realtors for sure. I think that's a good resource. The other question I get a lot is, when do I bring up lighting in the process when a client's going through a major renovation? And I tell guys all the time, as early as you possibly can, plant that seed. Let them think about it. Have a lookbook like this one here on the left. A lot of our successful dealers have this. It's a portfolio of what they've done. Remember, yes, we have a fantastic fixtures. We have great cables, the LEDs, this stuff is built, engineered for life. But what the client really wants, they don't want the nuisance of having to fix things, but they really want the outcome of what that light can do. And by showing them these wonderful images, you're selling the experience. You're really trying to, it's an emotional sell. You want them to say, oh, this is what I want to do in my backyard. I want to be able to, sit a dimly lit pergola in the evening, drink a glass of wine, and so forth. And that's what these galleries and these lookbooks will help you do. It's also a good segue into demos, because demos will also help you sell that emotion. And this is where you're actually getting out there and you're showing the client what it is you need to, what you can do. But the other important part of the demo is achieving light levels that the client is happy with. Because what you think is a dimly lit landscape may be very different from what your client's expectations are. So it helps to give an idea what you can do, also set those expectations. We have a number of great demo kits out there. These are my 3 favorite. These are heavily discounted off of the MSRP, off the dealer cost, actually. First one is what we call the Flex Pro Presentation Kit. It's $165. This tells the story. This has got a brass MR16, a lamp, a CMC cable. It's got a little transformer. You can show the client. You can put it in their hand. This will tell the Coastal story. Great for that first meeting. The center group of what we call demo gear or bucket lighting kit, this is what's intended to be used in the field. And when we do a demo, we're not talking about lighting the entire house. We want to pick a ornamental tree, architectural piece on the house, the pathway. We're doing, 8, maybe 10 max fixtures. But this bucket kit allows you to do that. It's also a great tool if you've never done lighting or not familiar with Coastal to play around with the fixtures. These are all, again, significantly discounted. You've got path lights, up lights, wash lights, all the cables, transformer. It's a great way to learn what the light does. That kit is $1,450. And then we have the niche kit, which is on the right here. Again, very popular line, that mini little fixture showing the different finishes, the different accessories. It's a great little kit with a power supply as well. That's $375. So it's a must to have this demo gear. It's part of being a dealer, and it also is going to help you sell the product for sure. This is an example of one of our dealers in New Jersey that this was for actually a golf course, a country club, and how they did. This is probably bigger than what you would typically do for a consumer, but I wanted to show you the pictures using their demo kit. In this case, there was no power. They had a generator. You can also use a marine battery, utilize our pigtails, very simple way of doing a demo without power or new construction site or what have you. Okay, also utilize us. CSDS, this presentation package is impressive. It's a great sales tool. Most of your competition, if they get a design, it's not going to be as professional as you see here. Again, we can do multiple pages with all sorts of details and cross sections if that's needed. All right. So as we wrap up, why Coastal Source? So we're pretty excited. This is CE Pro is a magazine that has a publication that has evaluated manufacturers over the years, and we've quickly become on their radar and won a number of them this year, last couple of years. But we're really proud. Number of platinum and gold and silver awards for our warranty, our training, our really usable website, and also our customer service. We're very proud of that. We've got a super easy product that's very fast to install. It's reliable and it's very profitable. So certainly, let's, if you have more questions about it, certainly give us a holler. Speaking of questions, before we open it up to questions, and I think we have several up here, I want to just mention a couple other webinars. Tomorrow we're going into audio. We're going to talk about the different components of audio that we have. So if you haven't heard about it, go to this link right up top here. Again, you'll get it in an email, and that will take you, whether you're an integrator or landscape lighting designer. Click there and the appropriate webinar will be there. We're also doing one next week with a partner of ours who's a business consultant, Jeffrey Scott, on crisis leadership. This is a free webinar that he's doing for us. We're pretty psyched about it. He's a pretty renowned guy out there within the industry. Keeping your business healthy in the Corona economy, some good tips. Again, you probably pull one or two things out of this next Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Okay, and then for those of you that are new to the Coastal Source line and becoming a dealer, this is how you can learn more. You'll get an email that will have this link as well, and we're happy to answer whatever questions you have on becoming a dealer and the qualifications of a coastal dealer. All right, so let's just reiterate how we answer or ask questions. Down at the bottom, you see those little Q&A icons. Just click on that. Up will pop this little screen. You can type your question there and send it to us, and we'll answer whatever questions you may have. So fire away, Pete. We have any there?
Well, some questions that came in that been able to answer, but I wanted to get it out here to the group. So one, Chris asked if this presentation is going to be available afterwards. So yes, we will be sending out both the recording of the webinar as well as the slide deck so you can refer back to. Another good question from Michael asked about dimming, specifically Lutron dimmers. Yes, Lutron dimmers, C4 Crestron, Savant. So we've tested our system with all of those dimmers. It all works very well. We do have a dimming guide available. But at the end of the day, you're essentially putting a dimmer in front of the transformer and dimming the transformer. So whatever fixtures are tied to that specific transformer will dim in unison. Lastly, I will say that overall dimming, if you're using adaptive phase, that configuring it for forward phase will get you the best dimming results. John, I think
that came in was about can the cable be used? Is it different cable from the lighting and the audio? The answer to that is no. It's the same CC cable that we use. It's just powered separately. So for lighting, we use AC transformers, and for audio, we use DC power supplies.
John, I think you've got some of the other questions. I got the ones that came into me so far.
Okay. How do you dim? You answered that, right?
Yes, actually, one thing you could touch on, John, what about your best example for, let's say, using a rolling wheel or going out to measure a project? What's a quick tip you would give going out to a new project to get ideas of cable lengths?
Yeah, a rolling wheel is definitely helpful for sure. Once you get experience with the product, for instance, when I'm doing path lights, I'm always calculating a 5 foot and a 10 foot. I mean, typically I place them about 12 feet away. So I want to have a little extra room so that I can move that fixture if need be. But yeah, it's a wheel is probably the best way to do it for sure.
Okay, and another one that just came in, so about cable length. So our longest CC cable length is a 100-foot cable. The question also asked about custom length. So at this time, there are no custom lengths. Now, using that infield splice I did talk about earlier, if you've got a situation, something unique where you've got to sneak through an existing tiny conduit that was run, prior to you getting on the site, you can use an infield splice and do something unique there. But again, our longest CC cable, a pre-terminated cable, is a 100-footer.
The other thing to remember about the, going back to your question about the wheel or measuring tape or whatever, that's when I always recommend too, if you're used to doing it through traditional way, showing up with a spool of 12-2 and just rolling it out, utilize us. That's where we can tell you exactly how many 5-footers, 10-footers you're going to need through our design services. That's what we do. And we can give you that bill of materials. And after you do 2 or 3 jobs, you really do kind of figure it out. You're outplating from a tree. You're always going to need a 25. You're always going to need a 5 and typically a 10. But it's just doing it to kind of get that experience. Okay.
Good questions. Those are all the questions I've got on my end so far.
Okay. It looks like one just came in, Pete, did you talk about pricing on custom cables?
No, I did address that. So cable lengths, again, on the CC side are 5, 10, 25, 50, and 100 footers. We don't do any custom cables, but again, kind of going back to what John had to say, the sort of measuring. And then lastly, if you've got that unique situation and you have to make a cable, again, going back to that conduit example, infield splice is really the best way to achieve that.
Okay. All right, everybody. Well, I think that's the last of the questions. I want to thank you for your time. Certainly reach out to us if you have any further questions. Expect an email probably tomorrow from us with the PowerPoint and some other information that will be helpful. Be safe out there. And again, thank you for your business. And we've got plenty of inventory here, service. We're happy to help you get things started. Excellent. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.